We just put them here.
I guess we can just start.
No, it's actually the beating.
So, hi guys. Is it recording? Okay, cool.
You can see the light.
Yeah.
Hi guys. What's your name?
JJ.
JJ. Nice to meet you, JJ. It's good. I'm only asking because you're the only one I don't know in the audience. What's up? So today we're going to be doing this is our first lecture in the lecture series regarding David Deutsch and his worldview. So we're going to be watching an explainer video today. We're going to be going through some slides, and then we're going to have a fun quiz at the end. So can I ask of the audience, like, can you raise your hand if you've heard about David Deutsch before? Or learned about it? Nice. So basically, David Deutsch is this really great physicist who wrote two books. The first one is The Fabric of Reality, the second one is The Beginning of Infinity. And these two books capture his worldview when it comes to philosophy, progress in society, physics, quantum physics. And we're just going to be going through some overview material to get a good grasp of his worldview before going into more deep dive lectures throughout the next few months. So what we're trying to do with this lecture, this is our first lecture in the series, is we're trying to take Conjecture Institute, which is it's a nonprofit. It was founded by some people in the critical rationalism David Deutsch community. It was a founding donor was Naval Ravikant, and he really advocates people to learn from these two books first before learning from others. And I'll just read it. If I had to do it over again, I would shelve every other book and just read The Beginning of Infinity and The Fabric of Reality first. If you do it right, it should take a year or two. Then we can talk about the rest of the list. So I'm Adam. I have co-hosts Anton and Sahil with me to help. Sahil is he's knowledgeable about physics and maths, and Anton is a CEO, and he tries to apply David Deutsch's ideas to his work and his life. And what we're trying to do with this lecture series is take what Conjecture Institute is doing, and they have this university program with different course modules, and they're rolling it out. And so what we're trying to do is take these modules online and all these PDFs and physically instantiate it here at Network School. So we're doing this under the conjecture.school project, and this is our first in the series. So we're recording it, and we're going to be uploading it under this umbrella thing. So back to the lecture. We wanted to start off with an explainer video, then we'll move on to some slides where we will have more of a Q&A, and then from there, we'll have a fun quiz at the end. So how about we all just watch this one first, and we'll go from there. So these are all helped by Notebook LM. Trained on I got the PDFs of the two books you see there, and then attached it, and then it helped to make these lecture materials.
Welcome to this truly profound realization. We're going to unpack the idea that our relentless quest for good explanations isn't just some abstract ivory tower academic exercise. No, it's actually the beating engine that drives literally all long-term human innovation and progress. By the end of our time together, you're going to see how the way we formulate ideas quite literally gives us the power to transform the physical world around us.
Let's kick things off with a mind-bending cosmic paradox. I mean, physically speaking,
Human beings are basically just a sort of chemical scum sitting on a tiny, completely unremarkable rock, orbiting a totally average star. On a cosmic scale, we are microscopic. Yet, incredibly, we accurately understand the violent, wildly complex inner workings of quasars and supernovae that are billions of light years away from us. We know for a fact that these distant stars are nuclear furnaces, transmuting base elements into the exact same atoms that make up our own bodies.
But that brings up a massive question, doesn't it? How can we possibly know what's happening inside distant stars when our physical senses can't even come close to reaching them? Think about it for a second. No human has ever visited the core of a star. Our physical experience is entirely restricted to our localized senses. It consists of nothing more than the electrical impulses from the light hitting the retinas of our eyes right this exact second. When you really stop to realize how trapped we are inside our own biology, the enormous sweeping reach of our scientific knowledge almost seems like magic.
Which brings us to section 1, Beyond the Senses, Dismantling the Old View. To solve this paradox of how we know so much despite our physical limitations, we've got to abandon a very ancient and frankly, deeply flawed way of thinking. For centuries, brilliant thinkers fell into the trap of empiricism. This is the misconception that human beings somehow derive all their knowledge about reality passively just from sensory experience. People like the philosopher John Locke incorrectly argued back in the 17th century that the mind was like a blank slate or white paper, and that we just passively read knowledge from the book of nature by observing things over and over again. But here's the thing, observation alone absolutely does not create theories. We are not just passively sitting around observing. In reality, science acts a bit like a reverse conjuring trick. We actively conjecture and intensely seek to understand. We build these massive, complex instruments, like radio telescopes and X-ray detectors, using just Earth's raw materials, stuff like iron ore and sand. And then we use those instruments to essentially fool our limited senses into seeing the hidden mechanisms of reality that simple, passive observation could never, ever reveal on its own.
Moving on to section 2. What is a good explanation? The engine of progress. So if passive observation isn't the source of our incredible progress, we need to look at the single human activity that actually does create knowledge. And the crucial point here is that a good explanation is an assertion about reality that is hard to vary. What does that actually mean in practice? Well, it means that if you try to change its details, you ruin the explanation entirely. It's like a tightly built puzzle. If an explanation is easily variable, like ancient myths claiming the gods made it rain or magic did it can just be slightly tweaked to explain away anything. And a theory that explains everything actually explains nothing at all. Seeking explanations that are these tightly interlocking, hard-to-vary parts is exactly what protects us from the dangerous trap of simply fooling ourselves. The physicist John Archibald Wheeler captured this feeling perfectly. Discovering an explanation that is hard to vary reveals the elegant underlying laws of nature and injects a real sense of deep beauty and absolute inevitability into human discovery. When you finally find the truth, it feels like it couldn't have possibly been anything else. It just clicks into place.
So, how does this actually build up in the real world? Progress doesn't just come from staring blindly at data. It flows through a very specific step-by-step cycle. We encounter a problem, we creatively conjecture solutions in our minds, we subject those solutions to intense criticism and experimental tests, we replace the erroneous theories, and ultimately, we arrive at a new, even better problem. It's this continuous, dynamic loop. And the best part, the real beauty of this process is that we can let our bad theories die in our place without having to stake our actual lives on them.
Here's section 3, the reach of ideas, breaking parochial bounds.
What's truly remarkable here is how good explanations naturally develop a sort of magical property called reach. Because it's so hard to vary, an explanation designed to solve a very local problem automatically applies way, way beyond its original scope. Take the tilt of the Earth's axis causing our seasons, for example. Because that explanation relies on fundamental geometry and physics rather than some local mythology, it automatically applies to other planets in totally different solar systems without ever needing to be redesigned. It has enormous reach. We didn't have to fly out to Mars or extrapolate our data to understand its seasons. The hard-to-vary explanation we created right here in our own backyard already contained that knowledge.
Let's look at section 4, predicting V's, understanding the spaceship analogy. This brings us to a major misconception. The belief that science is merely a tool for predicting outcomes. This is a view known as instrumentalism. But listen, believing science is just about predicting facts is exactly like saying the entire purpose of a spaceship is simply to burn fuel. It's completely confusing the mechanism with the goal. Burning fuel is just the mechanism. The goal is actually reaching the destination. Similarly, predicting data from an experiment is just a mechanism. It's a way to test our ideas.
The real ultimate goal of science is to deeply understand the underlying fabric of reality. Section 5. Problems are soluble. The power of universal constructors. By prioritizing deep understanding over mere prediction, our explanatory knowledge becomes an incredibly active tool. It gives us unprecedented, almost cosmic level control over our physical environment. And in the process, human beings become what we call universal constructors. Think about it. Every other organism survives by finding a specific, naturally hospitable niche. But us, human beings, armed with explanatory knowledge, transform totally inhospitable environments into robust support systems. Through the immense reach of our ideas, we can cause literally any raw materials to undergo any physically possible transformation, just as long as we have the right knowledge. We are limited not by our biology, but only by the universal laws of physics. Now, of course, as we continue to innovate, build, and push the boundaries of reality, conflicts between our ideas will constantly arise. We're going to make mistakes. It's guaranteed. And this means that problems are absolutely inevitable. We will always face new hurdles, new contradictions, and new unknowns as we expand our reach out into the universe. However, we have to pair that reality with a complementary and equally important mantra: problems are soluble. Because we possess this totally unique universal capability to create new, hard-to-vary explanatory knowledge, every single problem we face is fundamentally soluble. There is no barrier we cannot cross, no mystery we can eventually unpack, provided the laws of physics allow it. The right knowledge can and will fix it. Let's pull this all together into what is truly a grand paradigm shift. Number 1, people are universal constructors. Number 2, the universe is deeply explicable. Number 3, problems are inevitable. And number 4, critically, all problems are soluble. This brilliant shift in mindset proves that the true engine of unbounded future innovation isn't about natural resources or magic or passive observation. It is our relentless pursuit of good, hard-to-vary explanations. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. Since all problems are solvable given the right knowledge, what impossible problem are you going to solve next? Look at the challenges in your own life, your work, or your community, and seriously ask yourself how you can push human progress forward. It doesn't start with just waiting around for the answers to present themselves. It starts by actively seeking a genuinely good explanation.
How'd you guys like it? Yeah. I really like David Deutsch's worldview because it's super optimistic. So it's basically like there's this chapter in the beginning of Infinity, chapter 9, called the Principle of Optimism. And I think once you understand what he's trying to say in that chapter, I think it radically shifts your worldview into an infinite sum mindset. Where like the explainer video was saying, any problem that you encounter in life, as long as you can explain why it happens and you can use your creativity to apply a solution, you can apply your explanations and your resources toward that problem, there's no problem that knowledge cannot solve. So I think, practically speaking, because I know books like these can be very theoretical, but when you take it into practice, it's actually very powerful in a day-to-day sense. Anton, did you have any thoughts you wanted to add to the explainer?
I have many thoughts.
Would you like to talk about your many thoughts?
To be honest, these thoughts must be catered to the audience. So if somebody has questions, I'll be more than happy to respond to those.
Yeah.
But
does anyone in the audience have any questions about what the explainer video touched on? I think you've got one quickly. Okay, we got 3. Kurt. What's up, JJ?
I think to me, I'm very foreign to this idea. I think I was introduced to this book a lot of times.
Yep.
But I haven't had the time to sit down and read
Yeah.
it. So to me, it sounds very theoretical. So I'm actually interested to hear stories of how you really, because it's like a mindset thing. How do you really put it to be practical?
Into practice.
And then how do you make it practical?
Yeah.
Because I understand it's a mindset shift. Once a mindset shift happens, everything can happen from there.
Yeah.
But happy to hear stories of you guys who are familiar with this
Yes.
to see how it's practical.
Yeah,
I must say I'm very foreign to this.
that's totally fine. This is what this event is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an overview. Do you have a practical story you want to tell?
Yes. So I guess I don't need this microphone.
He's loud enough.
So essentially, what I like about David Deutsch's books is that he can totally take his concepts and put it like in practice in your real life. So I'm going to give you an example, right? So like basically, David Deutsch is all about criticism, right? So criticism that allows to see your own mistakes, drop misconceptions that led to the mistakes, and kind of like create better theories. He calls explanation better theories, better explanations, in order to fix something in your life, right? So I'll give you like a very like kind of like personal example, right? Like, and it has like nothing to do with like the images you see here. Like so far, it looks like it's all about physics and about like progress and whatnot. No, like this is actually like very practical. So like, I was like a very kind of like jealous person, right? And like with my last girlfriend, like we had issues because of like this jealousy. So I kind of like took David Deutsch's ideas and I applied it to myself. So I started kind of like criticizing myself, but not like in a neurotic way, like, oh, like you shouldn't be jealous, like, I mean, like you're fucking things up, you know, and whatnot. But so David Deutsch kind of like emphasizes understanding and explanations. So try to look within myself and ask myself, hey, what is the reason you asshole are so jealous? Like you see, like it's like screwing things up for you, like in a personal life. And I started like kind of like looking deeper and deeper and deeper, and like more and more nuanced pictures like started appearing, right? But one more thing about like David Deutsch is that like even if you have a better explanation, this explanation is still a misconception. You can always improve upon this better explanation by conjuring up like even a better explanation, which is deeper, which has like a more like bigger reach, right? And essentially the process is like infinite. And so like the same, I applied the same kind of like approach to my own jealousy, and I learned that like actually like a better explanation that she's just like a kind of like immoral woman is that like you don't think that you can keep her, right? This is a much better explanation. And then I started digging deeper. I tried to find like even a better explanation, and then I realized, I have like just like some sort of kind of like imposter syndrome like issues. Is that like where I'm not worthy of like sort of like even having a relationship, right? So and then I kind of like went through like a lot of different iterations, and finally I reached what I believe to be a true sort of like reason why I was kind of like being jealous of my girlfriend. And once I understood that, right? Because through this understanding, like some kind of like a miracle happened. Like all of my jealousy was completely gone, like just like in an instant. Once I understood it, so this was like I really cannot like underscore like that it happened within like 15 minutes of just like generating better and better explanations, criticizing these explanations, trying to find a deeper explanation. And once it happened, like I was never jealous ever since then because I addressed the root cause. So this is just like an example of how you can apply it in your personal emotional life, right? Not just physics, science, biology, epistemology, and all of this kind of like nonsense, right? So like, really like for like several years, I'm jealousy free, which is amazing. Yes, sir.
Hey, Anton. Thank you for sharing on that. And I wanted to bring up this point about what really interested me in this presentation was like, where he talks about how we create constraints to measure things in the universe to understand it better. And in your example, you're talking about how you did some introspection about.
Can you please speak louder? I can barely hear you.
You did this.
Can you use this for the?
And you talked about how you questioned yourself while you were feeling jealousy. And I really like this idea of like building instruments or having instruments that help us. So how did you find out, how do you find out what is your reason for jealousy or like?
I see. Like you want me to go like deeper into this example, right? Okay, fine. I'll do it.
Is there,
I
is
can.
it therapy? Is it a
No. Like, this is like a really.
thinking, contemplating, meditation, or what is it?
writing?
It's like literally just like applying his principles and his ideas to kind of like personal life, right? So like what I like about David Deutsch is that like his method is universal. Like it doesn't really matter if this is your personal life, like you're trying to like discover a new law of physics, you're trying to improve a society, like it's like you're trying to improve your startup. It's like literally universal. So like in my particular case, I just like kept like this. So like in his conception, right? So like whatever new theory you have, a theory he believes is like a really bad word for something, right? He thinks that like theories should be called misconceptions. Yes, these misconceptions are better than previous misconceptions, but you should still treat them with like suspicion and understand that like you can like improve infinitely upon it. So as I was kind of like saying, I kind of like went from, oh, she's like an immoral woman, to, oh, it's kind of like your issue, to exactly oh, like my issue is actually I don't kind of like believe in myself, like I don't believe like I'm a good male, like whatever. So like girls like don't want to be with me, like whatever. And then you sort of like go deeper and deeper, and then finally like what happens is that you have like a very clear sort of like vision of like what's happening in your mind. And in my particular case, I drilled down to the moment in my childhood when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was standing in front of the mirror like all naked, and all of a sudden a thought appeared in my head, a theory or a misconception as David Deutsch would call it. And this thought was as follows: I will never be able to find a girlfriend. And then I kind of like latched upon this thought, and then like my worldview started building on top of this thought, and like there was like more and more bullshit created on top of this thought, until it kind of like led to jealousy and a lot of like other issues, right? So through kind of like this refinement and drilling down and like refusing to accept better and better explanations, I was able to get to the root cause. And once I understood it, it was like a miracle. It like zero jealousy since like for the last 6 years. So so that's just like one example, right? I applied not just like in personal kind of like life, but also to in my startup, right? So in my startup, we have this kind of like rule that basically like all criticism is okay, like not all criticism is ultimately useful, but all criticism is like allowed of absolutely anything, right? So like anyone in the startup can like criticize like our approach, like myself, even though like I'm a founder / CEO, right? And that kind of like led to really good kind of like outcomes, right? So a lot of the criticism, so basically by inviting criticism, you are getting several sets of eyes, right? In addition to your own, where you can look at your startup situation from like many different perspectives, which results in that high fidelity picture, which allowed us to really take our startup forward quite a bit. I'll give you an example, right? So I'm from Uzbekistan, and like, I mean, that's like in Central Asia, like it's like a really shitty country in terms of like startup scene. However, you know, like we were able to get a customer in the United States. So basically, I'll explain it to Adam. I'll explain it to you. So like essentially, there is like FDA, and there are like 4 accrediting organizations under FDA that control all like medical organizations in the United States, right? Through setting standards, accrediting them, and so on and so forth. For one of them, the technical partner is Palantir, right? Like, which is kind of like a giant company. For another one, it's us, guys from Uzbekistan. How did we do it, right? It's, I believe, through application of David Deutsch principles. Like these guys in that accrediting organizations should not even be talking to a company that is like 1,000 times bigger than us, yet they're talking to us. I mean, like, like this is a really long story, but like what I'm saying is that I believe like this is an application of David Deutschian kind of principles, right? But to be able to apply it, you kind of like need to understand it. I mentioned to Adam today that like I must have read this book like maybe 50 times, and every time I reread it, I was like, oh my god, like I understand like another layer, which is deeper. I understand like where I can apply it like to, you know, like to yet another like part of my life, right? So, so like I find it to be like extremely like effective. So and whenever I'm kind of like serious about applying it, usually something good happens. Yes, sir.
If again, I'm completely new to this, right? Is there, actually between the two books, right, which would you recommend for beginners? Because I understand from what Naval Ravikant says, right, you need to like go through it over and over again.
Yeah, before Naval even like appeared on set, like right, like I was already a huge fan of the fabric of reality, right? So at first it kind of like reads like a typical kind of like shitty physics book that's written by assholes like, I don't know, like what's his name, Michio Kaku, or like whatever, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's like it's just like shitty cosmology. Like I've read it like many times, but then like as I was reading, I was like, oh my god, like what am I even reading? Like this was like insane. And then like the last couple of chapters, I was just like literally lying on the floor, and I was like, what the fuck did I just read? Like this is so weird. This is such a weird book, right? So so like years before Naval even appeared, like you know, like I was like a huge fan of the fabric of reality. In my mind, this is still a better book than Beginning of Infinity, but Beginning of Infinity is also like extremely powerful, right? So so I'll kind of like recommend starting with this and then going here. Both books are like mind-blowingly, you know, amazing. It's just like the deepest reading I've ever done. Any questions, guys? Yes, sir.
Wait, Lucas.
Yeah, this is all predicated on humans being universal explainers, right?
Yeah, yes.
How do you explain that humans are universal explainers?
So okay, like this is the part I don't get, and I don't necessarily agree. By the way, like not everything Deutsch writes about I completely agree with. I think he's got like big blind spots. So Deutsch is like a giant lefty, and so it kind of like you can sort of like see it in his book. A universal explainer. This is how I understand. This is how I understand it, right? You're able. So like your brain is a Turing-complete system, which means that it's you're a general. Like your brain is a general analysis system to solve any problem you have in your life. Absolutely any problem, right? So I agree with David Deutsch who basically says in one of the interviews is that any one of us in 18th century would be able to develop general theory of relativity and quantum mechanics if we just kind of like, you know, like we have like this ability to do that. Surely we're not Einsteins, right? But what it took like several years for Einstein, maybe it would take like 50 years for you, just because like you're thinking slower. But then in principle, you're able to do anything that anyone in the history of the world or in the future will be able to do. So like including super intelligent AI and like whatever, you are still able to do it, right? So the question is, like, why don't people do that? Why there are no Einsteins, right? And the reason that I think which David Deutsch identified beautifully is that our general purpose systems are held back by misconceptions, by bad theories of reality that kind of like developed, right? So I can give you an example. So imagine that I am an extreme sort of like adherent of some religion, right? And this religion has like this sort of like worldview, which is like quite limiting, right? Like I don't know, like for example, like by this religion, I must cut off like a piece of my body like every week, right? Very soon, I will kind of like be incapacitated if I really believe it, and if I really start applying it, kind of like in my life, I would be like kind of like left without the body like very quickly, right? So that's one example of how bad ideas embedded in your brain, basically like poor theories, like very bad misconceptions, they kind of like limit you, right? Or for example, I don't know, like if according to my grandmother's view, the purpose of my life should be getting married and having as many kids as possible. And like if I dedicated myself to this goal, I would be limiting myself in a giant way. I would not be able to kind of like run my startup, like read like long books and so on and so forth, right? So like ideas we have, beliefs we have, like limit us in a giant way. So you know how like somebody says that like you should drop your limiting beliefs. So I think it's much more radical than that. All beliefs are limiting, right? All beliefs are limiting. Because like, what is a belief? A belief is kind of like a judgment that you make in your mind that something is true, but you don't really know. Because like, if you knew, that would essentially be an explanation. It would kind of like be like a reality thing, right? So, and David Deutsch is basically saying that a big step to kind of like in sort of like realizing the full power of your brain, which is a general purpose system, is to drop misconceptions. For example, here, like this AI robot, like mentioned empiricism. Empiricism is like this insidious idea that talks about how knowledge is generated, right? So you need to drop it in order to kind of like to release a large portion of your mind, right? So you know how like people say that like we are using less than 3% of our mind? I think the reason why is because we have like a lot of like beliefs embedded in ourselves, like beliefs that we imbibe from culture, education, from our religion, from like our moral and ethical systems that we just like unquestioningly just like embedded in ourselves. But like that is consequential, right? Like usually what happens is that on top of these beliefs, you kind of start looking at the world through these beliefs, right? And you find through confirmation bias more and more kind of like misconceptions that you put on top. And ultimately there's this like giant like set of like giant web of like bullshit, right? That if you just untangle it, right, you will be able to see the world in a completely different way. The world full of possibilities and world in which your brain works like to the 100%, right? So I guess like I'm gonna relate it to kind of like meditation and enlightenment and like whatever. I think like this is what like is meant by like all these yogis and kind of like sages and saints and sons of gods and like messengers of gods. Essentially like they were like, for example, even in Islam, like they talk about like big jihad, right? Big jihad means like launch, kind of like purify yourself, essentially. And I think like what Muhammad meant when he was like talking about it is just untangle this web of misconceptions in order to see the world like in a more clear way, right? And I'm not like a Muslim, I don't follow like any religion, but like I do see that like so the originators of a lot of religions like really sort of kind of like underscored, just like David Deutsch did, oh, you need to drop your misconceptions. Like Jesus said, thou shalt not judge. Muhammad said, untangle your sort of like web of sort of like lies through like big jihad. You know, like a lot of this like Vipassana meditation and like whatever is happening, it's just kind of like to look at your thoughts from afar and kind of understand, oh, like this is bullshit actually. I can drop this thought, right? Oh, this is like another piece of bullshit. I can drop this thought. Contemplation is a specific kind of like technique to sort of like do it like very quickly. And David Deutsch is talking about in his books in the following way: we should drop our misconceptions so that we could kind of be released in order to create a better explanation, which we must recognize is yet another misconception, which at some point we will also need to drop in favor of yet better misconception. So basically, David is like, listen bro, like you will never reach the truth, right? But you will be less and less and less wrong. But ultimately, you will still be wrong. But like what's the point, right? The point is that the standard of living, your sanity, your happiness, everything gets better as a result. Because better misconceptions result in better quality of life, better personal relationships, better ability to kind of like handle like crises. So like that in particular is like a very important part. Like for example, I'm going through a giant crisis right now, right? Escaping Uzbekistan justice system, right? I'm like being serious. So like Uzbekistan may kind of like put an Interpol request and like whatever. So, however, like, you know, I kind of feel fine, right? Because like I was able to kind of like clear a lot of mental bullshit that would kind of like cause me to be in like panic or, you know, sort of like have a bad mood. I don't have any of that, right? So maybe occasionally I'm not like 100% polite, like whatever, but it's like I'm responding to this crisis so much better than I would have, let's say, 10 years ago. It's like not been funny. Hey, sorry, like this is like very chaotic. Anything else I could like clarify? Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you about what techniques were most helpful for overcome these biases, maybe what helped you to maintain your mind clear without misconceptions?
A very important part is to understand that the way the world is seen by you is absolutely wrong, right? So from, oh, this thing is tasty, actually, no, it's not. Like, I mean, like, taste is just like your personal interpretation of this based on some set of theories / misconceptions that you happen to like very much, and that's why you stick to them. That's why, you know, like, for example, you like this ice cream more than, for example, other people. So like from the taste of the ice cream to who you hang out with to like where to take your startup or like your business, in which direction, all of it is just like a giant set of lies, right? It's just like you're kind of like surrounded by like an ocean of lies. Where do these lies originate? In misconceptions in your head. And what are these misconceptions? These are misconceptions about reality that like you sort of kind of like imbibe into culture, education, and so on and so forth. So you kind of like need to really give it a serious kind of like thought that this could be true, right? Because like you're seeing the world right now and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? Like, I mean like this world is like objective, right? Yeah, but also no, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is that tell yourself in every aspect of your life is that I'm probably wrong. So like actually in my mind, you are definitely wrong about everything. Like to the degree that you cannot even imagine how wrong you are, right? From your like life, from your ethical system to sort of like who you want to be with, if you even want to be with anyone, right? So like to like I actually told Adam, because I'm a bit like kind of crazy person, I told Adam, hey listen, like man, like if you want to make a progress in like Deutsch's sort of like vision of the world, really question the idea that you're a human on planet Earth, because you don't know that, right? So I don't want to scare you guys, but like, but essentially like, you know, if you think about it, right? Okay, you're probably thinking, okay, like this guy is going to tell us that the world is like not round. Yeah, like that's what I'm gonna tell you. So like you've heard from your childhood that the world is kind of like spherical, right? You maybe like saw like proofs that the world is spherical and so on and so forth, and I don't have like anything to do with that, right? But the truth is that you just believe it. You don't really like know it. You just like believe it. Like if I ask you, hey, can you prove me that the world is round? You will not be able to. Maybe some of you will, but like a lot of you will not be able to. Just like you need to kind of like recognize, oh, I'm just like believing some probably good ideas. The world is probably round, but like I actually don't really know myself, right? So it's just like a belief. And David Deutsch basically says like drop these beliefs in order to clear way for insights. And he calls insight conjecture. That's why Conjecture Institute, right? And this is exactly what I found out to be true to myself. So whenever there is some kind of like an issue, some kind of a problem, my first go-to is not what to do in this particular situation, but what misconceptions do I have in my brain that will prevent me from finding an excellent solution. And this works really well. So like, so you're like, okay, like I'm like thinking about it like in a very like wrong way probably, right? Like, so it's like, what is wrong about it? So you clear the debris, right? You clear the bullshit, and usually the answer comes like that. So David Deutsch calls it conjecture or guesses, right? And some people call it like inspiration, some people call it like muse. But essentially, David Deutsch does not say where good explanations come from. He just like says they come. And he's exactly right, because like good explanations, good ideas come from out of, I guess, like nowhere. Let me give you a quote, and I want to sort of like ask you to kind of like guess who said that. So here's the quote. When I think of 99 ideas, I cannot find a solution to my problem. But when I drop all of these ideas and swim in the sea of silence, the solutions comes instantly. Who do you think said it? No. Who's the smartest person like in the history of the world by a lot of people? Einstein. Yeah, exactly. Einstein. So Einstein's like said exactly that. So basically he's like saying, like to translate into Deutsch speak, my thoughts necessarily stem from my worldview, which stem from misconceptions I have about the world. So like when I try to act from misconceptions, of course like there is no solution, right? So I just kind of like drop this misconception. I kind of like distance myself from misconceptions, and the solution normally comes, right? So to respond to your question, so how do you do it, right? Take yourself less seriously, right? Because like taking yourself less seriously means that, oh, my worldview is probably not right. What I think about that person or this person, that he's like a bad person, or like he's like a hero, or like a good person, right? This is probably also wrong. So I'm just going to kind of like step way back and just like kind of like dissociate from all of my opinions. Once you dissociate from all of your opinions, like there's like clearing in your head that appears, and then conjectures just come like left and right, left and right, left and right. So I would say that my creativity exploded. Like it became like several hundred times bigger than like let's say like 10 years ago. Like once I kind of like understood how it all works. So surprisingly, it's not about accumulating knowledge and building webs of knowledge. It's about removing bad misconceptions from your worldview. And this can be very, very hard. Like for example, Adam cannot get over the fact that he has to be unethical in order to be truly Deutsche. Like remember I told you you should like really drop this idea that it's wrong to kill, it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to kind of like rape or whatever, right? It's wrong to kill babies. Okay, probably, right? Probably, but like, have you really given it a lot of thought, right? Like, where did these ideas come from, right? So, okay, I need to clarify here, right? Once you drop all these like ethical systems, you are much less likely to kill, steal, like whatever, murder. The way it works is that currently it's just kind of like a dead weight, like ethical system through which you kind of like act, and often you like unwillingly act. You're like, yeah, like it's wrong to steal, but like my babies like need food, so like I might as well steal and then feel guilty about it. Like this is like very dysfunctional way of doing it, right? So a much better way would be to kind of like remove all ethics, right? Become like absolutely amoral, but not like immoral, right? Because like immorality is also like a worldview, but just like amoral. You don't have to purchase on this ethical system or that ethical system, or you don't kind of like, and in this like wonderful space, you will have so many wonderful ideas which will improve your life like in a big way that you will never need to steal. And because like you're gonna be happy, you will never need to murder. Like somebody steps on your kind of like leg, on your foot, you don't get irritated because like you're just like a happy fucking person, right? So like, but then like under the weight of compared to the giant weight of like a lot of like ethical systems and let's say like religious kind of doctrines, such like take Catholicism, right? And their weird obsession with sex, right? I mean, a lot of like stupid shit like comes out of it. Like for example, like child abuse, like whatever. You know about the Catholic Church, right? So that's because like intentions were good, but like the approach was like pretty shitty, right? It was like based on like dead misconceptions, on top of which like they built like this giant kind of like set of like bullshit, which was like well intentional, but then like priests raped children, right? As a result. So like yeah, that would be so much better if they just like followed Christ and just like said, okay, like we shall not make any judgments, and just like remove all of that bullshit and sort of like just like leave a more Deutsche life. Sorry, like this is like very chaotic. I didn't realize like I was going to talk about this shit. So anyway, any other questions? All right, guys.
That was fun, huh? Yeah, I think Anton touched on so many great points. What were some of them? Like how you apply this worldview to your day-to-day life, dropping misconceptions. So part of David Deutsche's like, I realized that part of his worldview regarding morality is like, do not destroy the means of error correction. So it's a little counterintuitive. Like you would think that to do to be a good person, you would have to do good things, which is good, but he kind of inverts it, where it's like the real engine of progress on an individual level in your guys' daily lives and also as a civilization and as a species is actually error correction. So it's not, it's about identifying and becoming aware of the problems and the bad explanations that you hold and removing them. It's not an addition, it's actually a subtraction, it's a compression. So we're always seeking to compress our explanations into tighter, more clear explanations, which ultimately help us to solve problems. Yeah, thanks so much. So now we're going to be just like riffing on some of the slides based on the two books, Fabric of Reality, The Beginning of Infinity. And that's why it's called The Beginning of Infinity, is because, like Anton was saying, there is no end. There is no end to the misconceptions. There is always a better one. I'll give you an example. Like Einstein's theory of relativity was built upon, or it was an evolution and an upgrade from Newton's, I believe, right? And then after Einstein, then it became quantum physics. So there's always, and you can expect that there's going to be another one after quantum physics, which we haven't even figured out yet. But yeah, let's start going through some slides. Yeah, and it's also, I mean, if you look to the right, it talks about the Enlightenment. So the Enlightenment is sort of this phenomenon that happens with civilization. So I think it started with the Greeks, if I'm not wrong, and we've seen it a few times, like with Renaissance Europe in the 1600s. But the thing with the Enlightenment as a movement is that it's not guaranteed. We can mess it all up. Like it is not a guarantee that the Enlightenment will persist, but we should want it to. And that's what we're trying to do here with this project, is like keep the fire of the Enlightenment going through awareness of the problems that we have, seeking better explanations of our problems, so that we can infinitely problem solve and have this be an engine of infinite progress as a species. Yeah, so basically, so new problems are misconceptions. And problems, the only reason why you have a problem in your life is because you don't know how to solve it. But I think a good analogy, which Anton touched upon, was using tangles as a symbol. Like there are so many ways in our minds that we're so mentally tangled up. And only until we can untangle our minds, untangle our bad mental knots, can we see clearly. And he gave a good example about how once he addressed the root cause of his problem, it was crystal clear from there. So I would invite you guys to like look into your own lives, see the most priority problems that you guys face on a day-to-day, or whether it's a chronic problem, and seek to explain why it happens, try and address the root cause, try and untangle your mind, and like you were saying too, like practice like these ancient practices of meditation, all these gurus, they're trying to point you in the right direction, where they're saying, empty your mind, try and not be so busy-minded, and try and think as clearly as you can, and drop things, like subtract instead of add. Via negativa, solve problems through subtraction and compression. Okay, so this slide, the one with the red X. So basically people thought before with empiricism that sensory experience was how we could know things. It kind of reminds me of like Descartes. Like he just questioned everything, which I think is it's a good thing to question things. And like Anton was saying, that when when you have something, when you have an idea in your mind that you're holding on too tightly and you believe it, that means that you're holding it so highly and sacred that you're not willing to question it. But the insight is that you should actually be able to question anything, anyone, any idea. All of it should be held lightly. You shouldn't hold on too tightly to any one thing. Hold up, my laptop is not loading. Let me add my hotspot. Does anyone have like other questions while we're still? Yeah, I'm gonna use mine. Or Gigi, you were saying that like, you know, you're new to this. Like, was there any like problem that you wanted to kind of give as an example that we could work with? I don't know how comfortable you are sharing things, but
is it for yourself, right? Is it for us to question everything or tackle the problems that we want to solve, right? How regular do you do it? Because like you could spend the time as a monk to like just question everything.
Yeah.
I guess where's the fine line? I think something that comes to mind is essentially you're skeptical of everything.
Yeah, but I think if you do it like Descartes, it can be a waste of time. Like you can like questioning in general is good, but like if you're I agree, it is a fine line. So his question was, how do you separate the line between questioning everything versus
making it practical to solve problems?
Making it practical to solve problems.
At least for yourself or
Yeah.
is it like a monthly
And
thing?
the cadence.
Yeah.
I mean, I think daily, I think every waking hour you should be trying to solve your problems as they arise or as they are a priority to you. Not everything is a priority by definition. I mean, because you could be questioning things in a totally irrelevant direction, but I think if you're questioning things within the most relevant things to you, that's a useful use of time, in my view. All right, here we go. Yeah, so, I mean, with these books, you know, just like scientists and physicists are, they can get very semantic and they can use these fancy words, and they can use even words that we do know, like optimism, in a totally different way, so it can get confusing. But there's kind of a glossary that would be helpful for people to know. One of them is fallibilism. So it's the idea that there are no authorities when it comes to truths. There are no sacred ideas. There are no sacred, there's no person like your parents or whatever that know everything. So everyone and every idea is subject to being wrong, and you should allow yourself to question them because they could be wrong. And that's the idea with fallibilism. Everyone is fallible. Everyone can be wrong. And that doesn't mean that you can't be right either. You can actually hit the nail on the head with an idea, but you don't know for sure. And you should always hold it like, because the problem is that if you hold things too tightly, you could be missing out on a better explanation. So yeah, progress requires a tradition of criticism and the active pursuit of good explanations, which is what we're trying to do here, like a tradition. And to bring it to like different civilizations too. Like I know the Greeks had, like the Greco-Roman world had great traditions when it comes to forums and active open debate. Things like this are very useful on a civilization level to error correct and to, like Anton said, bring multiple eyes and viewpoints to a situation, because you can be wrong, they can be wrong, but when you're all communicating and you're all giving your own 2 cents and your own perspectives, you can come to a more accurate picture. There are also examples where civilizations come together and come to really wrong conclusions too, but
can I make a comment here?
Yeah, what's up?
Bro, essentially, try to implement this like approach to the most pressing problems, right? And like see if it works. You will, like, if you do it right, you will see that it does, right? And like naturally, you will start kind of like applying it like more and more and more and more until it's like so like all-consuming that you will realize that your qualities became that of a kind of like a person who just like does it naturally, right? So, and then like it's not like you're expending effort to do it, which initially I admit is like really high, right? You need to like apply high efforts, but then like your nature changes, and you're just like, oh, like, you know, like, oh, you know, and by the way, I just wanted to say like it's not about skepticism, right? Because skepticism without good explanations is just neurotic sort of like paranoia, right? You should kind of like question that as well. Why am I so like cynical? So but this is not cynicism. This is not skepticism. This is just like questioning, right? So like this is like very different. So I would say that like one thing that I needed to kind of like overcome is being sort of like what is it, like cynical, like. I understood Deutsch like at a shallow point, right? At a shallow, in a shallow way at first. I was like, oh, I have to be cynical, right? But then no, cynicism is also like a set of misconceptions. And once I deconstructed them, I kind of like stopped being cynical. So I actually like I'm a very, very trusting person. It's like, which is the opposite of what you think would happen if you can like take it seriously. You know, like it's kind of weird, but like. You're getting very counterintuitive sort of like results. Yeah. And so how do you square you can never be right, which is essentially what David Deutsch says, with, oh, use this method to improve your life. And I would say, yeah, you can never be right. In fact, like one of my mantras, like which I remind myself every day, sounds as follows. Everybody is wrong about everything all the time without exception, including this sentence. Yeah? Like, I really, really think this is a good starting point, right? Even though this starting point is also wrong, yeah? However, you can be locally relatively right. So, for example, is like a lot of people here like really want to become rich, become a unicorn or whatever, right? So, is this like really the best use of their time if they really ultimately care about their well-being? Perhaps they should become a monk, right? Perhaps they should kind of like have like 20 kids. Who knows? Maybe they should do like skydiving instead of like having a startup. So already here, like there is like a giant sea of mistakes that they're making, right? Like just like slaving every day on their startup, right? Where all they should have done is just like get a dog, you know, and that would be it for them. However, you can be locally right, even though like you're making this giant mistake, you can be locally right in learning how to get a better product market fit, like getting like money, so like you can be locally right, like David Deutsch gives you that. So for example, the Einstein's theory of relativity is locally right. I mean, like we can use it for like GPS coordinates and like whatever. Like Newton's theory, like definitely absolutely wrong, not even close to truth, right? But like we can still use it, you know, like to kind of like in war or like whatever. You know, like that this like mission was like purely Newtonian physics, no relativity. We can like even send spaceships to the moon and back and bring them back using like Newtonian physics. Is Newtonian physics correct? Of course not even close, right? But it's like locally close enough, right? So this is the way you should kind of like think about it, right? So try to be kind of like untangle this like ocean of bullshit, which is kind of like your brain, right? And you will kind of like improve things locally. And with time, it just like kind of like becomes your second nature, and you start deconstructing things left and right until like everybody thinks that you're fucking nuts, like me.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm asking too much, but because I think you earlier mentioned that David is more liberal.
Yeah, he's like a lefty. He also has got like blind spots, man. He's like not right about a lot of things.
What does he think of, let's say, very specific things like politics? What's this?
Oh yeah. He's got like a lot of bullshit about like So I think he doesn't recognize the power of biology, right? So like Stephen Su, he's like a famous geneticist who was here like several months ago, and he basically understands David Deutsch like pretty well, and he thinks that no, like you're not a universal explainer actually. Like yeah, 50% of why you're so confused and kind of like your life sucks is because of your culture, right? Which is like David Deutsch's point. He basically says like free yourself from culture, right? But 50% is your genetics, and I talked to him about it, and he made like a really good case for like this, like he was talking about polygenic scores, like how like genetic, he showed me the data. He had this like amazing lecture, and so like after that lecture, like I kind of understood that, oh my god, like you're not a universal explainer if you were dealt a shitty genetic card, but you can be, right? And a lot of people are. So if you try to tell it to David Deutsch will faint, right? Because like his ultimate kind of like belief is that, oh no, like everybody is a universal explainer, but he's wrong, you know. And plus, David Deutsch is like too lefty with regards to kind of like, you know, like politics and stuff like that. Like if you follow him, you clearly see the guy is confused about a lot of things, right? So he's not like God or whatever.
Thank you.
Do we have like an event after this one?
Yeah, you guys have an event after?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it scheduled
At
for
1.
one?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wrap up. Maybe we'll do a part 2. I think we've touched on good points for a part 1. But I think there's a check-in for the event. I don't know if you guys need to do that. But we'll definitely host another one. Thanks guys for coming. Let me see what you guys have to do. I think it's fine. I think everyone.
Yeah, bro, we need to get out. It's like
Yeah, let's get out of here. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, bro. Listen.